I believe that within this digital millennium, photojournalists became themselves as an eyes of the society. And people with help of us, of photojournalism, could see what's happening in the conflict zones, in other parts of the world, whatever else where photojournalist is with help of our eyes, with help of our cameras, but just in a direct way, right now, right here. A lot of people ask me why and what for I'm going to those dangerous places, and why I'm doing that on my own will. And at some moments, I realized that somebody has to do that. And after being in a conflict zone, I found that there's a lot of people like that, like volunteers and combat medics and drivers and wide range of other professions who feel that they have to go there, and they could live peacefully in their own countries, and they could never heard about this conflict, but something drives them. And my story is more about that this is a very hard and tough job. And for young people who dream about going to the front lines, I want to tell that please don't do that. Never, ever. It's not. It is dangerous, and it's a very hard job. And you have to be fair with yourself, and you have to be fair with your family and people who assign you, or if you've not assigned. But when you go there, you need to answer thousands of questions. And you have to remember that you are the eyes of society, so you don't need to only get to this hell. You have to get out of there and bring pictures to people. And like, how are you going to do that? There's no 3G there. Basically, with the photojournalism, it's quite a new profession, and we ourselves not confident till the end what we are doing. And you know, photography appeared more than 100 years ago, but photojournalism appeared a bit later. And before, as the photography appeared, it was a tool to document reality. And in different countries, it was used in different ways. And somewhere it was just a document, somewhere it was a part of an art, somewhere it was an instrument of a tool for propaganda and substitution of reality. And later on, there appeared a generation of people who kind of be born with the cameras, and they don't really understood what kind of things they can do with this camera, and they understood that they could capture the moment, or freeze and record for ages someone's beauty, or capture the fact, or tell a story. And I believe that we, as a photojournalist, we have an ability to be in exact place and in exact time. In August, when I was asked by the New York Times to go to Lesbos and to tell a story about the about the new routes of refugee and just migration routes to Europe through Balkan countries. And it was the beginning of August. That was a vacation season. There were a lot of people on the beaches of Lesbos, and suddenly some of the vacationers could be disturbed by the some rubber boats that were arriving from Turkish coast that you can see in some images over there in the background. Look at this. So, and refugees in some places they flooded cities and they were buying tickets to go on a ferry to mainland Greece and just hanging out in the cafes. And that was part of that story that someone at some moment, quite poor-looking, desperate people appear and disturb vacationers on Lesbos and other islands. So for the first boat, I had to wait for some 3 days. I know that they should come, but there were several Coast Guard boats that were cruising between Lesbos and the Turkish land, and I was waking up every morning 5 a.m. I went to the hill that could observe the whole bay between the agency between Lesbos and Turkey, but there were no boats for 3 days, and then suddenly one of them arrived. That's the picture of the first boat that I saw when they came in. Back in November, we had some 50 boats arriving a day. I'll show you the graph and the numbers. So basically, this is Lesbos, Chios, Samos, Leros, and Kos islands that were used for refugees to get into European Union. Once they got to European Union, they are able to claim asylum, and they could travel within whole Europe without checks, because Europe is a part of the Schengen zone and it's borderless. Here's the graph that's showing the amount of arrivals, and that's the peak when it was in October and November. It was then in October. It was more than 200,000 arrivals. After that, refugees took ferries. They bought tickets and they took ferries to Athens, and by bus they traveled up to Macedonian border with Greece and Macedonia. They took train and went to Serbia, and then after Serbia, after the checking at the border, they went to Belgrade, and before the Hungary border was closed, they went up north to Budapest and then to Austria. After September, this part of the border was closed, and Hungary built a huge fence. They continued building fence and then sealed the border with Croatia. So refugees started to go to Croatia, and then to Slovenia, and then to Austria. So that's the route. That's the okay. There's no scale. So that's the geography of a place that I used to work, and some main parts were on a lot of pictures, and I spent a lot of time here on Lesbos. Then I traveled to these red dots, these hotspots on the borders, because every country tried to limit arrivals of refugees, and they set up new rules or limited the passage. So on the other side of the border, on the exit side of the border, refugees were massing and they camping and were waiting to pass, and they fight with each other. Syrians were fighting with the Afghans were fighting with Iraqis, and all together. So we are going back to Lesbos. One of the volunteers. On the shores of Lesbos, there were many photographers, but there were 2 or 3 times more volunteers who were helping refugees. And there were rescue boats and volunteers on the ground who were dragging these boats to the shore, and these guy is directing the boat to land on a safer place without cliff and without stones there. And this is one of the moments of happiness once they reach the shores. And we saw a lot of families, and it depended on the weather, but entire roads of the boat from Turkey to Greece was taking about an hour and a half. And I shot this image early morning. I think that when that woman with her baby boarded the raft, the baby was sleeping, and once they came to safety, she started to feed it. A lot of people were coming wet, and volunteers provided them these metal thermal blankets. And yeah, that's one of the sad moments that I encountered. This boat arrived at night, and the waves were very high, and men died from heart attack or either hypothermia. It was quite cold. And so once they arrived to land, they had to walk all the way to the registration camp. Depending on the place where they arrived, it might be some 70 kilometers or just 5 kilometers. And we, as photographers, we drove all the way along this coast. Just if we see a boat starting from Turkey, we try to define the place where it will land. Depending on weather and needs and on the funding, sometimes Greece or volunteers were providing transportation to refugees, but this part of road is very narrow for a bus, so they had to walk towards the camp nearby, and then board the bus to the registration camp. And then that's the image from Hungary, and people walking just on the streets of. They arrived by bus to Austria. No, not by bus, but train. They arrived to Austria, and they were walking along the street of Sleepy Village to go to cross the border with Austria. And sometimes trains were arriving like every hour, and the train were carrying some 2,000 people that marched through the streets of villages and then disappeared. Or it's quite dark here, but that's the path that refugees walked through the cornfield in Hungary. Some of them tried to escape from border police, and they did that at night mostly. That's where we traveled across Macedonia together with a family. And then it's Dobova in Slovenia, and police is escorting refugees again to the registration camp, and the local man is watching this. Again in Slovenia, and in Tovarnik in Croatia, Croatians provided the train, and people were preparing to board it and to go to the Slovenian border. And again in Slovenia, they had to. They are escorted, and the line of refugees was quite long. So they walked on the dikes or on a in the cornfields, like these previous images. I mean, that's all pretty from the same scene or from the same day when police and used horses and rides policemen to escort huge groups of refugees. And it's not really clearly seen, but this woman is walking under the rain, and she feeds her baby while she walks. And in Serbia, the registration center, and it's under the camouflage net, and this checkpoint or registration camp was manned by some military and some Hungarian local train conductors who's not really happy with the refugees. And again in Serbia, no, Slovenia, sorry, this is Serbia. So we basically, I mean, we walked together a lot, and I walked with them a lot from some destination spot where the transportation that was provided by the country arrived, and then they walked to through the border to the next place, and then they traveled further by train, either by bus. It depends on the country that decided to what mean of transport they were providing. I was I could not cross the border with them because they were going under status of refugees, and UN Convention something allows them to cross the border, not only on official border crossing, but for me as a journalist, I had to make a detour, go to the official crossing, get a stamp in my passport, and then find those people who I was following and go with them further. That's the picture in Greece, Macedonia border, and that's the family. It's mother and her son who are divided by the fence. And staying overnight in Slovenia on the border with Croatia in Dobova. Or we were staying, it's early morning and people were warming up near the bonfire, which actually did not give any warmth, just smoke. And same place, different colors, and early morning in Greece. And a lot of them were stranded on the train station. They were brought by the train, but the border was closed, and people started to live in empty cargo train cars. And when the Macedonia themselves implemented new rules for passage through the country, and they started to allow only Syrians, Afghans, and Iraqis, all other nations became just in the limbo. They were stranded and they don't know where to go. And that's Idomeni, and the train station in Idomeni, that's just the last 100 meters before the border crossing. And there was a train station canteen, then just became as a club for migrants, and they were handing out there, drinking coffees or beers, fighting with each other. It took me a little while to get into this community. I gave them cigarettes, I drank a little bit beer with them, they got used to my camera, and I started to shoot there because this was something different from pictures that I've shot tons of them, camps and sleeping people and people sitting near the bonfire. And then I suddenly found this kind of club for migrants. And those, most of them, they are from Morocco, and it was a kind of a group of soccer football fans who somehow decided to try to travel to Europe. And again, fighting with police. Most of the countries, to manage these arrivals of refugees, they chose police as one of the main forces to deal with them instead of hiring or dealing with the humanitarian organizations. Governments were sending riot police who usually deal with football fans or civil unrests. And any decision was brought by force. So if they called them to clear the rail tracks for trains, so they send shielded police and they just push them out from train tracks. And that was a group of Iranians, and that's Greek police, and that's Macedonian police, and that's the border. And Macedonians were not allowing Iranians to pass through because they didn't consider them as refugees, like there's no war in Iran. But those people decided that they will stand clear and they will stand forever, and they will block the passage for any other nations until Macedonians will allow them. And Greeks decided to clear this entrance. And this man, actually, he holds his baby, and then when I shot a lot, I did not clearly understand what's going on, but then I understood that this man holds not his own baby, and he holds him as a kind of a shield or a weapon that could keep policemen away from them and from the entire group of people. And that's a father and a mother of that baby who just worry about him, but they gave him this baby to act. And the picture itself doesn't represent the way, the situation pictured on this in this image doesn't represent itself the way it was in reality. So that's one of the reasons, and that's one of the things when we need a caption. And I clearly stated to my editors when that these migrants, they are attacked by police, but they not on the right side. They are provoking police and they are using baby as a life shield, not as an argument. That's one of the moments when people were scuffling and trying to get on the train into Warning. And another moment of police brutality when Hungary closed the border and they built a fence, and then they completely sealed the border, and some refugees, they still were trying to get in, and this was absolutely unclear for me because those two situations are quite equal. There's a man with a baby, and a man kind of uses his baby as a shield, because it was clear that police will not let them in. But at some moment, refugees, they decided to go, and they brought their babies as a shield, or as arguments that let us go because we are kind of saving our babies. And he got several kicks in his head, and then police used the pepper spray and everybody flee. And that's one of my favorite images from the whole series, because it shows a man who sits alone and he possibly dreams about something, and if he's a refugee, then he dreams about safety and his own house, own home, and those lines, the traces from airplanes in the sky are forming kind of a square that shows that depicts or symbolizes the house. And kids are kids everywhere. Yeah, so basically Greeks were living their own life and they were hanging out and enjoying. That's some city festival on Lesbos Island, and there's refugees who were just passing by because they arrived just recently. And that's some images from this year. Guys already arrived to the shelter, and they found accommodation in some empty school, or school was emptied for them, and they have nothing to do. They just play football and hang around, or watching news about what's going on in their country.
Sergey told me a secret of, I think it's a secret, but he told me yesterday, last night when we have a casual dinner together. And he said he, never use continuous shooting mode on your camera, right?
Right now, no. But when I was with the agency, I had to shoot.
Yeah,
like
after
10
you
frames
left
a day.
AP, right?
Yeah.
After on your own, you are the boss of your own, so you can, stop using continuous shooting mode. That is a great challenge, right? Because you wait for 5 days or a week for the boat. Once the boat comes, as a photographer, if we are in the scene, we get ready for the 24 frames per second to capture every single moment of that disembarkment from the boat. But he said he didn't do it, right? So how do you do that? And still capture those moments.
Well, you have to get used to that. So at first, I was just shooting with my iPhone, and I was shooting in Instagram mode. So you press the button, you got the picture, and you have to edit that. So you are not choosing from the burst of images. And then somehow I got used to shoot that with my camera as well, and it's a way to trust yourself and trust your feeling of that moment. You don't burst everything and then edit that and choose and then decide what moment is better. You just have one moment, and that's it.
Another secret. Okay. He don't need to change or recharge the battery for the camera for a week, right?
Well, that's how my camera works. Yeah.
Yeah. But when we are in this kind of critical assignment for news, we have to prepare a lot of batteries and think how can we charge them. But he said he never have a problem about the batteries. How can he do this? Because of one picture, one shot.
Well, maybe I'm not using. So I don't shoot a lot frames. Then I don't check a lot of
Review.
frames.
You
So
don't
I'm
review,
not
right?
using the display of the camera, and this saves a lot of battery juice.
Yeah, especially when you are in the field without power, right? So that's very important for news assignment.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen oftenly that you are completely out of power or completely out of internet connection. But yeah, I prefer to travel lightly, and I have one camera, one lens, maybe maybe some laptop with me or not. I can just take a big flash card, and sometimes if I feel that I have to walk for a lot of time, then I don't want to carry a lot of stuff with me if, because it's mostly useless. I could keep everything in the car or at the hotel and then just come back and use that. You know? There's a lot of photographers who think like, okay, maybe I will need 35 and then maybe I will need something like 200 lens and 600. Why not? And then, and then I had that experience and I had that feeling as well. But at some moment, I understood that I have a comfortable distance, and this is a distance within some 35, 50 millimeters, and I need to go to that distance. And I don't need to bring the situation close to me. Like, I don't need to use 200 millimeter lenses and magnify that and bring that closer. I'd rather go there by myself with my legs and shoot that with this comfortable distance. And that's what Robert Kapp was saying in a different words, that if you're if your pictures are not good enough, you were not close enough.
I think it's also very important for such assignment when you face people like refugees. As a photographer, for myself, I don't really want to press the shutter for continuously for 24 pictures per second in front of them. You know, when they depart from the boat, that when you just take one picture per shutter, then that shows some kind of respect for their situation, and that bring you closer to the refugees, I think.
If I would be alone, maybe yes, because I would not disturb people with many clicks. But there were a lot of photographers around me, and everybody are shooting. So I just took my frame and I can go.
How many? I mean, this picture, this situation, how many around you?
Around me, I think like five or seven.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not maximum. Sometimes in some days there were like 15 photographers. You just you don't want to go there. You want to find another place to shoot, because journalists were more than refugees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have visited many war-torn countries in the world, and how close did you ever get near a firefight, and what was the experience? And the second question is, in a recent interview with the Russian Times, you said you are against all kinds of censorship for disturbing images because those disturbing images help to tell people what are actually happening in the world. So have you ever taken some really disturbing images which were turned down by the editors, and what are they?
Okay, so with the combat thing, you know, photography is more about light and color and people's like body language and movements. So it's not about sound. You almost cannot capture sound. And when you go to the front line, you hear only, and that's it. So there's nothing to shoot mostly. So most of the time, you just need to go back kind of kilometer and then there's refugees and there's families and there's people who are kind of preparing to go to the front line. And you could shoot much more, and in a way you can tell your story better than just going to the front line. And for the second thing is, yeah, I believe that if Nick would publish his image right now in 2016, it might not be published. We have this story with Facebook that Facebook himself tried to censorship that, but we know that's our heritage. That's image with a history. Imagine any other images from Syria with the dead, naked bodies, with some victims of bombardments. They will not be published, and they will not provoke people because some editors and some people want to think that this disturbs, and nobody wants to think about that. I believe that it disturbs, but it provokes people for action. Provokes people to demand from their governments and decision makers to act and stop that violence. But many editors, I'm afraid, right now there's ads, there's many things that drives them in a way against publishing this image.
So as a freelancer going into these zones, what's your support network look like? And is it difficult emotionally to be alone without the support of a bureau behind you?
You mean what kind of support? Moral support or financial support?
Yeah, I'd like to know just logistic support, but also moral support.
Well, our network is our friends and our other colleagues. We always cope together, and we share expenses and share ideas and try to bring develop some stories together. And it's not about I'm not always alone, but I always try to find a companion for my story. So it's not that hard. And then you can discuss that and share your thoughts and feelings.
I would like to know. So we have seen a lot of your great works. The theme of tonight's talk is to be or not to be. So can you share with us some of the things you are not to be? And one more question. I want to know that in this digital age, so we all know that every photo we have to go through a certain degree of post-processing or maybe retouch. So how many post-processing do you accept for your photos, or are you do it by yourself, or anybody do it for you?
Well, to be or not to be, I don't have any objections for not to be, but you need to understand that you have to compete with those who decided to be.
That is your profession.
Yeah. And for the second question, well, it's easier. I don't use Photoshop. So I don't have any tools that can alter my images. I use only color correction tools on Lightroom, and depending on a situation and and the media that assigns me. I can edit that myself. It will be a little bit worse than to hire a retouch artist and who will do that, but in a better way for you and just taking money. But I have my personal what's that? Preset, the personal preset in Lightroom that I use, and it's just about the color balancing and use some kind of desaturated use of some colors and a little bit more clarity, and basically that's it. So basically what I wanted from my images that they all should look on the same density and the same softness whenever I would shoot them indoors or outside. So they will not be different, you know. So I developed this preset, and I go, and then sometimes I just lighten up or darken some places in the image.
So, do you experience that? So when you upload or deliver the photos to the editors, so they are you sure they are not going to do any more retouch, or they can do that?
Usually they don't.
They will not.
I mean, a good editor should receive a good image already done from a photographer, in my understanding, and then his job is to play with those images and find what's the best image for the I don't know, front page or top of the web page, and then what will be the sequence, how to tell the story in the best sequence, and or build a slideshow. Maybe he can ask the journalist to crop that in a different way to match the layout. So then photographer has to do that again themselves.
Hi, Sergey. Good evening. I had the pleasure of seeing some of your work in the F11 Museum this afternoon. Congratulations. I wouldn't describe any of the images I saw as being gruesome. Nothing could really prepare us to really imagine what you went through. My question really is, how has the whole experience changed you? And does that at some point really affect how independent and detached you could be in the storytelling? Because I'm sure...
I mean, you mean refugees, sorry?
Yeah, I did the humanitarian side. I mean, I saw some of the... nothing was really shocking. We see that on CNN, BBC every day. But you were on the field, you were on the front line. I just wondered, you know, through the weeks, through the months, how has that experience changed you as a photojournalist? And at some point, do you feel that you could be too emotionally involved and that would detract you from objective photojournalism? Thanks.
It only provoked me to continue that story because the crisis is not over. It's just second stage of the crisis. It was exodus, the first one, and now it's settlement. Those who came to Europe, they are trying to settle themselves with a new reality in Europe with strict rules, different culture, etc. And that's just provokes me to continue working there.
Hi, I have a question. When you engage with your subjects, how you describe your style to when you're doing a story? So how do you engage your subjects and disengage the subject when the story ends, when your assignment ends, kind of thing?
How do I engage? You mean how do I present myself? Saying hi. Well, it really depends, because it depends on this micro society and how tough or how nice are they. And sometimes people really afraid of camera, and they are. I'm not talking about refugees. I'm talking about some different stories. If you have to I don't know, shoot stories about the kind of drug dealers, for example, or mafia or football fans. So they might be very tough and unwelcome to you. So you might need to hang out with them for a while just without camera and get used to them, and they will get used to them and kind of gradually start taking some snaps, maybe to kind of iPhone photos, then bring the camera next day. So that's a long process. Sometimes it's just not a matter of one day. It's a matter of building relations. Or you might just not find a top guy who is responsible for that and tell him frankly, like, I want to make some pictures about you. Dude, it's not going to police. I'm a journalist. I'll do a story about that. He might say like, hey, do that. That's okay.
Sergey, I know that you're not that old, but if you had a 22-year-old daughter or son who wanted to become a photojournalist as a freelancer or independent, what kind of advice would you give him or her?
Well, if she really wanted that, I would suggest to try to find a newspaper and work there, because there's a lot of freelancer who really doesn't know the exact workflow of media and how to properly caption images, how to edit them, how many images you need to choose and to match them with the layout. And that all comes with the practice. So I would suggest her to find a newspaper or website, and they could, she, whatever, could work there at least for 5 years just to get this experience working with media, and then try to go and freelance.
I want to ask, as we are colleagues before, I want to ask what's the differences between to work as a for a news organization like AP or whatever newspaper and freelancer.
Well, that's a lot of differences, because I don't have cameras. I mean, I don't have company cameras. I have to buy cameras myself. I have to reach editors. I'm not with any agencies anymore. So I have to reach editors and pitch my stories to all of them. Usually, agency can do that, and I just sit and wait while agency said like, okay, they are interested, you can go, and they will take part of my money. So I do that directly with editors. I have to buy cameras myself. I have to pay for my expenses. So I buy the tickets, I buy the hotels. After that, if the story was bought, then the media can reimburse those expenses. I have to build my own website, my own archive, and do my accountings and everything by myself. So before, everything was done by agency, and agencies just gave you assignment like, go shoot this news conference or go shoot that football match. But I can choose. First days when I left agency and I was waking up in the morning, I had this habit like, call like, boss, what we are doing today? And then you realize it's nobody to call. You have to think about everything by yourself. But then you can say everything. You can say everything. When you report on some important social issues, you see kind of a lot of disturbing things. But you have to understand that you are not just an ordinary person. You are a journalist. So you have to keep your personal feelings somewhere inside of you, because you have to have clear head, and you have cameras and your eyes, and you have to shoot and deliver that to people. And so you might go back home and then talk to your family and get rid of your feelings, but they should not affect your images.
After seeing your work, I can feel that you are a very sensitive person to other people's emotions. I can imagine actually the work you have done, the career you have chosen, actually have put lots of pressure on you, but you still going on. You still insist. That's I really appreciate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Your persistence. Thank you.
Thank you.